Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of Pucks and Prosecco Investigates. I'm Meghan Angley. This is Chloe Theil, and we've got another true crime style podcast coming your way to dig back into all the details of the Gabriel Landeskog story. We'll review a timeline of events and how we got to this point today, where we're speculating all kinds of things about the possible return
Keyword
of Landeskog.
speculating, for sure.
Oh, fully leaning into the conspiracy theory element of the true crime
This is
genre.
good for me, too, because I need an update on when his surgeries were and what the timeline kind of is. I feel like that's something that I haven't looked at in a long time. And now that we're talking about the potential comeback, then we need to know how the timeline has kind of worked out to this point.
Absolutely. I think it's a good refresher. And I think what's funny about it is, as media along the way, we've learned about things that have happened in the past that we had no idea were a part of his timeline. And so I think just getting a full list of how things played out brought us to this point to where Gabriel Landeskog hasn't played hockey in nearly 3 full seasons. It's obviously a bit sad. You know, we had the high moment of Landeskog winning the cup with this team, and it's been in this waiting period and concern around what the recovery would look like and what options were available to him, and trying first options and then having to resort to plan Bs. And so it's been a whole mess of things. All right, let's start back November 23rd, 1992. Gabriel Landeskog was born in Stockholm, Sweden, to Cecilia and Tony Landeskog, a Sagittarius, for those who are wondering.
And didn't we talk about how he is a twin?
He is a twin.
Right. So was he born first or second? Does that matter?
Why
do we know?
I think he was born first, but he has a twin sister.
He gives off like a little bit of older brother energy. So I'm going to say he came out like a minute before she did.
And doesn't he have, though, also the vibe of someone who does have a sister? There is just something about him that is, you know what? I'm not even...
just something about him.
The girls that get it. You could just sort of tell when somebody has a sister. Like a man was raised in a family with at least one sister.
Yeah, I fully agree.
All right. He has this amazing junior career. He is named one of the first European captains in franchise history for the OHL for the Kitchener Rangers. The Avs draft him second overall in 2011, and he makes his debut for the Avs opening night that following season. And in that season, he's named to the All-Star game. He wins the Calder Memorial Trophy. I'm not going to go too deep into how successful Landeskog was early in his career, but it's important to remember why this organization has invested in patience when it comes to Landeskog's possible return to play, because he's been such an important member of their organization. Going back to September 4th, 2012, when he was named captain, at that time, he was the youngest captain in NHL history, surpassing Sidney Crosby, who once held that title. And it was a huge decision from the front office, because this was around the time where they were making tough decisions about dismantling their core at the time. You know, we'd once believed it to be something more like a Ryan O'Reilly and a Paul Stastny, and this was sort of the moment I mark that the organization started a new chapter, and it all began with Gabriel Landeskog. And I think a lot of people had to go to bat for him, because at such a young age, it was probably hard to see exactly what he'd be capable of as a leader, even though he'd been one in juniors. But I think the right people went to bat for him, because there's a reason they noted that he would make such an excellent leader at such a young age. And it's everything that we've seen in the period of hockey that followed. You know, there were a few things that happened after Landeskog gets named captain. Some other important players get brought into the organization, you know, and eventually a Nathan McKinnon, eventually a Cale Makar. Mikko Rantanen is a part of that too. A Bowen Byram, down the line. And so all of this sort of started this new era of Avs hockey, and Jared Bednar gets brought into the fold. They have that league worst season, but even through some of the worst hockey and low moments, Gabriel Landeskog was bought into this team. Like, specifically, please don't trade me. I want to be here. I believe in this group. And I think there's something beautiful about the mutual belief then Landeskog during some of the Avs' darkest hours to see this team through the dark days to a Stanley Cup to now where the team is waiting on Landeskog.
Right.
When they needed him to believe in them, he did. And so now they need to believe in him a little bit is sort of how that feels. So we'll jump into the bubble where sort of the birth of the knee issues start for him. In Game 6 of the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs, Cale Makar's skate blade accidentally, or was it? No, I'm just kidding, cut Landeskog's knee, and it resulted in a cartilage injury on the bottom of his patella.
So do you remember when this happened?
I actually don't.
Okay.
I don't know if there's some PTSD and there's a selective memory thing happening here. I don't remember the exact moment.
Okay. And I'm the same way. I don't remember it exactly. And I had never seen such a clear view of Cale's skate cutting his knee.
Yes.
Until I watched it in his documentary. And one of the questions that I've had since that I don't think that we've talked about before is, do you think that Cale feels bad about it? Do you think it obviously didn't like destroy him mentally because he's still such a great player, but do you think that maybe he had maybe an off period for a while thinking like, wow, this was my doing in a way?
Here's my hope with that is I don't think anyone involved knew what was going to happen next, that this was going to prove to be such a problem, because that fall, because if you'll remember, this was COVID times.
Right.
And so the playoffs happened through late September and the season began in January. And so there was this period after, the Avs had been eliminated and well before the season started in January that reportedly Gabriel Landeskog had a small procedure to address this injury and felt okay the following season. And so I imagine it was not on Cale Makar's mind because it was probably in his eyes resolved, at least in that moment.
Yeah.
And same with Landeskog, like all seems to be well.
Yeah.
So I hope it didn't creep back in later when complications began to creep up on him. So I hope that they seem to have such a good friendship that they could talk about how this was bigger than just that moment with Cale Makar. I think then playing on it is what sort of led to it debilitating to the state that required even more care.
Yeah, and when I was looking this up, his first knee surgery, the expectation was that it was going to be a 12-week recovery. So
don't mind me.
So it makes a lot of sense that
Mind you. Okay, good.
No, it makes a lot of sense that Cale probably would think it was a lot smaller than what it actually was to that point. But I completely agree. I don't think it should affect him in that way. I think they have such a good relationship with each other now. And I even think about the Pepsi commercial.
Yes.
My favorite commercial to ever exist, and it's of the two of them, and they're kind of making fun of each other in that. So I think with them having such a good relationship, I'm sure Landy was also a big part of telling him like, hey, I don't want you to feel any sort of way about this.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's one of Landeskog's strength as a communicator. And I think Cale Makar is just such a top-notch human being that I don't doubt for a second that he was feeling some type of way about how this all played out for Landeskog. So at the end of that 2020-2021 season, just days before becoming a free agent for the first time in his career, Landeskog signed an 8-year, $56 million contract extension to stay with the Avs with a $7 million a year cap hit. obviously that plays an important role in the future of this story because of LTIR. If Gabriel Landeskog does make his return, where does that money fit into the cap, and just navigating what that's been, because the Avs haven't always utilized LTIR with Gabriel Landeskog in some of the uncertainty stages of it all. So that extension, I really won't assign negative or positive value to it. It makes a lot of sense why it happened when he did. He felt mostly okay in that 2020-21 season. So that all makes sense to me. It's just something they kind of have to live with, the aftermath then of it being such a long contract. But it's understandable why it was.
Yeah, at the time, it was the right move to make. So
we go into March of that season. So March 14th, 2022, Landeskog led the team in scoring with 30 goals and ranked 5th in points with 59 before undergoing a cleanup knee surgery. And that was when he left before the end of that regular season. But the Avs were so dominant this year that they still finished first in the Central and atop the West. And after missing the final 23 games of that regular season, Landeskog returned for the Western Conference first round against the Nashville Predators and helped them in their sweep. He recorded a goal and an assist in game 1, 4 points in game 3, and they completed that round as if it was easy work. But he reportedly did start to feel pain around that time. They faced the St. Louis Blues for the second consecutive season, and he recorded 3 goals over 6 games to help the Avs to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2002. And he scored the first goal of the finals in the first period of game 1. And then in June 26, 2022, Landy recorded an assist on McKinnon's game-tying goal in game 6 to help the team clinch the 2022 Stanley Cup, beating the Lightning 2-1. This moment, it's hard to save enough space in this timeline to give it its proper due, just how much elation was in this moment when the Avs finally did it. And we didn't even fully appreciate how much Landeskog had sacrificed through the playoffs at that point, because he didn't let on that this had been happening. And you could have maybe suspected that the guy who would clean up knee surgery could be feeling some type of way, but we had no idea, because he was battling his heart out and making a difference in the entirety of the playoffs.
And I can't even comprehend the amount of pain that he was feeling while he was playing, and he did it anyway. And he did it for the sake of the team and for winning a cup. And I'm sure after they won, he didn't even feel anything because he was so excited. And then it kind of becomes a reality a little soon after.
It's tough, because I think that crushing reality you're talking about, it came about training camp timeframe. I think it's in this recent docuseries that he talks about having to contemplate the decision September of this year, but he tried one more thing first, and this was the arthroscopic surgery in Minnesota on October 18th, 2022, aimed at smoothing out the cartilage behind the patella, and he was expected to miss at least 12 weeks at that time. He began rehabbing in Toronto, and it still wasn't clear what was ahead for Landeskog. There was this hope that maybe this could have addressed the problem enough. Interestingly, March of 2023 that year, Lonzo Ball had a cartilage transplant procedure on the knee after a torn meniscus from January of 2022, and he made his return this season. He's played in 35 games, averaging 22 minutes a night. It's down from his average, which was closer to 30, but he's also battling a wrist injury at the moment, so he's not currently playing, completely unrelated. It's encouraging to see that Lonzo Ball has made a return to play that has more or less stuck. It's not brought him out of the lineup because of some kind of complications with his own procedure, and his path to return has seemed similar to Landeskog's. The difference is, Lonzo Ball made his return months sooner than we've seen Landeskog, who's yet to make his. So I think the nature of these being different sports and different people is important to factor in that too.
I completely agree.
I keep it in the back of my mind as a little piece of optimism.
So unfortunate too that he got back from that injury and then now has had a wrist injury for the last few months, right? It's been a little while. So all that hard work, now he's kind of sitting there waiting for his wrist to heal.
I hope he keeps his spirits up because he's like, but you know what? There's still a path forward for me to play basketball.
Yes.
I just need to heal this up. There's no sense in risking further injury to anything else at this point.
Look at us talking basketball. Is this off court?
We're off court at the moment. All right, back on ice. April 23, 2023, the Avs announced officially he would not be back for playoffs. At that point, we knew regular season wasn't going to happen. We were eyeing down playoffs. They ruled him out.
Right.
And then a month later, May 10th, 2023, he has the big deal cartilage transplant procedure and hasn't played in nearly 3 years. So that was the last resort kind of nuclear option. And it's a common procedure, but the results on professional athletes and being able to play at an elite level is what is so unknown about this procedure and what will be possible for Landeskog.
Yeah.
And so we've just been keeping an eye on it. Like this year, we've been teased a lot. You know, going back to November 15th, there was a morning skate appearance for Gabriel Landeskog. And then we didn't really see him a whole lot. January 2nd, another morning skate appearance. And this actually was back to back then. They were on a homestand. And so we saw him get in a couple morning skates back to back. But this was also around the time that ESPN and Daily Faceoff came out with the reports of inflammation issues, that he would be trying to skate back to back and the knee would swell up too much after. So it was not possible for him. But Jared Bednar refuted that report around, I'm trying to think, mid-January, late January. And then March 1st. At that point, we hadn't really seen Gabriel Landeskog, you know, the same way he'd been skating over that homestand at morning skates. We hadn't really seen that in a minute. And then March 1st, after the Ryan Lindgren trade, Chris MacFarland does a press conference and he's asked about Gabriel Landeskog. And he says, I think you guys can figure out where this is kind of going. And you know what's crazy is I went and listened to it. He said, I don't foresee him joining a practice in the next day or two or week or two. And I'm going to spoil it, but flash forward to just a couple days, 2 weeks later, he does take his first practice. But March 1st, that's Chris MacFarland's comments. March 5th, news drops that a clean sheet Gabe Landeskog, this docuseries debuting on TNT, is going to be available to viewers behind the scenes of Landeskog's injury that's plagued him for so long, the inner workings of his mind through his journal entries, and the struggle to define his identity beyond hockey. This 5-part series, 2 episodes out. Next one is March 26th. It was a little weird that this news of the docuseries came out right after Chris MacFarland's comments. It felt like it was conflicting.
And like what I've talked about with Jesse, I think he's said it on the show, the fact that they're doing this whole docuseries based on his recovery, but we don't really know where his recovery is at this point.
Right.
So why would they go through the work of putting out this docuseries and kind of have the end be a cliffhanger of like, well, he's not back, but he's also not back. You know what I mean?
He's still working away.
Right. It feels like it needs to end with something, and it would either end with him retiring or end with him coming back. So we're kind of left on this cliffhanger of what's the last episode that drops right before playoffs.
It's going to be April 13th, the last game for the Avs, right? This is the final episode of A Clean Sheet. And interestingly, too, March 7th, Eric Johnson returns to the Colorado Avalanche.
Also, shout out Eric Johnson's birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
EJ.
birthday, Aries King. March 11th, Gabriel Landeskog also goes on Spit and Chicklets. And then that March 17th, I already spoiled this a little bit, but Gabriel Landeskog takes his first practice and stays out for the whole practice, still in a no-contact jersey, by no means a full practice in the truest sense, but we had never seen anything like that. And this is just after Chris MacFarland said, I don't foresee him joining a practice in the next week or two. 2 weeks later, Gabriel Landeskog would like a word with Chris MacFarland.
This is why the front office is being sketchy right now. Like, he was very careful with his words to not say the next few weeks.
Doesn't
the next
it's
week?
Like, well, you know
what?
It happens. You're right, Chris MacFarland. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks in like 3 days.
Right.
So you didn't lie to us.
But you made us feel bad.
But you made us think that he was not even going to take a practice in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
We were assuming the worst, but then all this a clean sheet stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
And
all the interviews.
This media junket Landy's going on. He's traveling to continue skating with the team. And it'll be interesting to see, the schedule's a little funky. They'll be back. I want to say just like, let me look at it here, actually. Colorado.
I do want to go into when he told you all in the locker room that he was going to play as a joke.
Yes.
That's not funny.
That's not funny.
It is funny. He's a really funny guy. But also, him just joking about it, I think, is a big deal.
I agree.
It's a big deal for him to even go on a road trip. I mean, he hasn't been on a road trip since he played in 2022, right?
He has been on road trips.
He has.
He has closer to playoffs to be with the team as a leader.
Right, but not in regular season. I'm assuming maybe a few
I want to
times.
say he has,
okay.
but I'm not certain which ones.
This one...
But it's with the express purpose of skating with them.
Right.
In the past, it was like to be around the team.
Right.
This is with the explicit purpose of skating with the team back to back.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I don't know. And they'll be back. Let's see. They have a couple of home games, so we can keep a closer eye on if he's skating at some of these practices. It gets tricky because this time of year they start doing a lot of optionals, but that will be something huge to keep an eye on, because it is intriguing. One, I like the note about him being able to joke about it. I do think that shows a lot of emotional healing, probably around the processing of what he's been dealing with, to be able to add a little bit of levity to the situation. And I'd also like to hope that it's because there's more optimism around it from his perspective to be able to joke about it.
Yeah. And I do, watching the videos of him skating with the team, the most recent one of him at practice, I think he looks good. And, before, I think there were a few things that people didn't like seeing when they saw him kind of skating with the team at morning skate. And then after a little while, he decided to kind of move his skating back where nobody could see what was going on. So he was kind of out there showing everybody that he was skating with the team, and then dialed it back and went to skating by himself. So I'm interested why he chose to do that, to continue rehabbing by himself for that little space in time.
Yeah, I think he's talked about in the past too how there's so much pressure with everybody speculating when they do see you skating and weighing in on how you're skating.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it can just kind of be too much outside noise around you trying to evaluate your own progress, and you also having a different idea of what the measurements and benchmarks are for progress that people who are weighing in on it might not even know. And that's why I think it's also significant that on the 17th, when he did join the team for practice, he chose that. It's very intentional. He let us see him at practice.
Yeah.
And so letting us back in, I think, is another interesting aspect in it, because he could have continued skating on his own, but eventually he does he does have to join them for some practices, and he could have even just waited to join them on the road trip and have a few less prying eyes than the audience at Family Sports. So I think he's letting us all in a little bit more than before, and that also stands out as a little bit significant.
I want to know what you think about, if it is significant, of him not wearing the red jersey. Because it's kind of like, I don't think he's still getting a lot of contact with the team regardless of that jersey.
No, I don't think so at all. I think they understand full well his situation. It doesn't feel so different from Arturi Lehkonen also not wanting to wear the red. I think especially players who are battling a longer term injury, because Lehkonen had been rehabbing his shoulder following a procedure, and so he kind of knew his timeline to return was a ways out as well. But he still needed to continue skating with the team and ramping up to play. And I can imagine wearing this badge of, I don't want to call it shame, but just the glaring red jersey is such a stark reminder of injury and
That's
this
true.
place in life, this station of I can't play with the team yet. I can't play with the team yet. And so maybe it's just to detach from that reminder of it.
They do kind of look like the odd ones out. You have a few of them wearing red and everybody else is in their jerseys.
That's for their safety, right?
Yes.
But I also think that because this group is so in tune with the fact that, yes, Lehkonen was injured and Landeskog is injured, we're not going to be throwing the body around on Landy at practice.
Just one day, Keaton Middleton just slams Landeskog into the boards and he's like, he's not wearing a red jersey. Like, what do you expect?
What do you expect?
What do you expect from me?
That would be nightmare fuel. Keaton Middleton,
please don't do
be
that.
careful. Yeah, just keep your eyes and ears open, guys. But yeah, I think it just serves as a reminder, and they're like, you know what? I don't need more reminders. I'm pretty well aware of what's going on with me at the moment. So this makes for the fun part of it all. Where are we at with Gabriel Landeskog making his return to hockey after 3 seasons of not playing? Does it feel real? Does it?
I mean, I think it doesn't feel real just because it's been so long, but I am very optimistic. I think truly that it will happen. I think he will come back. God, I don't see, like, me being optimistic about him coming back and also believing that it's real, I feel like are two very, very different things. But because of the way this timeline has worked out and everything that's been happening the last few weeks and all of the press and the docuseries and skating with the team, traveling with the team, I think it's very likely that he could possibly come back for the first round of playoffs. Whatever the first home game is that they have at Ball, I think he'll make his comeback. I don't think necessarily that he's going to play in every single game. I think he'll probably do what Drouin did and, have to play one game, take a game off to make sure that there's no inflammation or it doesn't worsen his rehab.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very likely that he's going to come back in the playoffs.
I think so too. It feels like it's building up for that with all of these things that have happened in March with the media junket and actually returning to practice. We put some feelers out on Twitter /X to see if Landeskog does make his return. We want a little bit of fanfare. We want a little bit of flourish. So we wanted to hear from you guys what that might look like.
Think you guys did a great job at this, by the way. I was really hoping that hockey Twitter would pull through and give me these very elaborate scenarios, because this is exactly what we were looking for. This is a big deal. Like, if he's coming back, he's going to come back and make a scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can't just be he skates morning skate and then he's on the ice for, like, when they line up. No. Imagine that.
No.
There's just no way.
There's just something about Gabriel Landeskog that feels a little more diva.
Yes.
And I think
it's his sister. It's his twin sister.
It's the power of a sister. I think there's this question of, all right, Gabriel Landeskog, cool Swedish hockey player, excellent captain, and marketing genius. Just the final episode of A Clean Sheet, April 13th, building this storyline to make for a more dramatic return to play if it happens. That would be so calculated if that's what this all is.
I feel like he's dropping the hints and nobody's sure if we should be picking them up and running with them, but we are.
Because he's also throwing red herrings. Like, I need those for the game on Wednesday.
Right. And so it's just, you don't really know what's happening, but it does feel a lot like he's dropping these hints for a reason. And I do want to bring up this comment. I've been one of the most skeptical that Landy was never coming back, and now I feel really optimistic.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal too.
Yeah.
Going from not thinking he's coming back at all this season, not for playoffs, maybe not in general, to, okay, well, he's dropping all of these hints. Maybe it is possible that he's coming back, and now I am optimistic that he will be back for playoffs.
I think there has to be an amount of Landeskog that recognizes people are feeling that way because of what's happening, that I don't think he would irresponsibly dangle that in front of people's faces if that wasn't the plan for himself, too.
And maybe he just doesn't know what he's doing. That's the other part of all of this, is that all of this is happening and he doesn't even know that. I mean, I'm sure he knows that people are starting to think that he's coming back, but if he knew that doing this media and putting out the docuseries during this time would cause people to feel this way. But I don't think that's true.
No.
I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
I think he's a really perceptive person. You know, I talked about his strong communication skills. I think I'm going to give him some credit that he knows a little bit what he's doing with all of this. Anne asks, if the makers of A Clean Slate series have already filmed the final episodes, would it actually be kept quiet how it ends? I do think it's an interesting question. Like, are there NDAs involved? And the people closest to this project have had to keep hush-hush because I had no idea this project existed and they've been filming it for some time.
Yeah.
So that means there have been camera crews around Landeskog and family and company that had not uttered a word. And we were able to get this drop on that Wednesday when they announced that this was coming out. Kind of completely out of left field. So I think this has been kept hush-hush and probably a very small circle of people that also probably signed NDAs.
And I think a big part of this too is, so I don't know a lot about Fresh Tape Media. Those are the people that are making his docuseries. They're pretty small. You know, they just had, NHL had a documentary come out on Prime Video about the entire NHL. If Landy wanted to use a platform like Prime, anything that's big to do this docuseries, I think he could have. I think he chose a smaller, what is even the word for that? Smaller, I'm just going to say company because I don't know what the word is for that. But I think he chose a smaller company so that they could keep it under wraps what goes on.
No, I think that's an excellent point. That could be a very calculated. See, I've made him out to be this marketing genius, storytelling mastermind, and I'm not walking that back. I think that's true.
Landy's actually going to retire and then go into marketing. Is actually what's going on. That's his big announcement at the end of this.
I found a new calling.
Yeah.
I'm going to be so sad, but I mean, also, you are pretty good at this, so I support you on that journey too.
So, for the sake of us reading these fan theories, we're going to assume that Landy is coming back, that he's not retiring, okay? So, I'll start with the first one. We just went and pulled, I think we pulled 8 from Twitter. They were so good. Everybody did such a good job. If you haven't seen that post, go look at it because I think there's like 45 comments on there that are all these different theories of how he's going to come back, and they're all super funny. I laughed, I cried, all the above. So the first one I have, it's from Avs10. It's a stormy day in Denver, leading up to a pivotal Game 3 Avs Stars tied at 1-1 in the series. During warm-ups, a bolt of lightning hits the ball arena. The lights go out. Moments later, the lights flicker back on as the captain steps on the ice. Somewhere, Thor is smiling. Hat trick.
I didn't realize how much Thor was in some of these. I'd read him in another one.
A lot of Thor.
A lot of ABBA.
A lot of ABBA. And I wanted to shout out, because I don't think I pulled any of the screenshots of the ABBA, which I should have.
I might actually just find one right now because I was obsessed with the amount of ABBA inclusion.
What I got from all those comments was Thor needs to be there, ABBA needs to be there, and there's also has to be lightning. There's a lot of lightning.
Has to be lightning.
And I love it. I love the lightning. It really, having that like strike in front of him and then him just appear behind it.
Yes.
Wow.
I just love your minds. All of your minds are so good. All right, let's see. This is from Avalanche, Joey. All quiet until game 1 of the playoffs. Alan Roach gets on the PA to announce the starting lineup. 29, 88, 8, 7, and 39 are announced. There's a noticeable absence at left wing. The lights go out at Ball Arena completely. All the small things begins to play. At left wing, and it's a gif of Gabriel Landeskog coming onto the ice.
Guys.
Lots of lights cutting out, too. I love the use of lights
you
in this.
have to. To give it the dramatic effect, you have to have a bunch of the lights coming out. There's just no way. And I do love, how do you feel about all the small things playing?
I love it. I have been getting heat waves. Like the day Landeskog returned for practice, heat waves came on.
Mm-hmm.
And I could also see that being a really important song that they could use in his return.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, let's see. This one is from Mark Caswell Jr. The last scene in the documentary, leaning over the counter. I'm not sure what counter, but in my head, I was picturing like he's in a random diner, like just had some pancakes and he's leaning over the counter.
Or he's at his own house.
That would probably make more sense. Last scene in the documentary, leaning over the counter, looks at the camera, says whatever the Avs playoff rallying cry will be, and says, "Let's get after it, boys. I'm back." So I pulled this one because I think this is also a really, really good theory of how the documentary might end. Like, it could be that the documentary just ends and then all of a sudden he appears during the playoffs, or it could end with him saying this at the documentary.
I do love the idea of some kind of dramatic ending scene that has some continuity, and then the next scene is something that's featured on the Jumbotron and him in his return to play.
Yeah.
And I love this. Or something very cryptic in his final words at the end of a clean sheet. And as far as what happens next, I'll see you guys at Ball Arena on blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I think there's a better dramatic line that could fit there.
I know. Imagine, because they feel, this is what's hard about this, though, because they filmed it within the last year, right? So imagine the Avs had a very horrible season and ended up not making the playoffs. I don't know how they would film the end of this.
Yeah. I wonder if...
We're just making the assumption that maybe he filmed it recently. Who knows?
Yeah. I do wonder what they would have done, because on one hand, it's kind of an incredible story on its own, and I see the value of a clean sheet, whether Landeskog makes his return to play or not. The component of him talking about detaching from his identity as a hockey player and grappling with that is so interesting and such a good topic of conversation for other athletes and people to hear. So I hope it's more than that, though. All right, we've got Philly Boo Boo. First home game. The lights are dimmed. The music is bumping. The crowd is cheering. Bernie is at center ice pumping up the crowd as they announce the starting lineup. As they're about to announce the last starting player, there's a complete power outage. Lights on. Landy is Bernie.
Whoa.
Abby, this is so Abby coded.
This is so Abby coded. Shout out Abby. Imagine if Landy pulled out the Bernie costume.
Well, actually, that'd be so traumatizing for... I don't mean to ruin the illusion of Bernie. Bernie's real. Bernie can't take off his head. Wait a minute.
Yeah, he'll be in the mini Bernie costume, of course. So it'll be the regular Bernie, and then Landy will be in the little Bernie costume, and then he'll skate on and take that head off. That makes more sense, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. This is another Thor one. I don't know.
This is one of my... I read this to my dad. I thought this one was so funny.
This is from... Oh, God, I'm going to say your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Scott Sederstrom. Hopefully that's right. Game 3. First game at home. A stick lays at center ice. Player after player tries to pick it up, but it doesn't budge. The arena darkens. There's the lights again. Gabe, wearing Avs breastplate and red cape Thor style, descends from the rafters, effortlessly lifting his stick, and remains for the anthem. So another big part of this was him descending from the rafters.
There were a few that had him strapped up and being, I don't know, what's the word in? Repelled in?
Repelled.
Repelled in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word that I confidently said.
Repelled?
Yep.
But I do love that too. I think I don't know how comfortable he is with being suspended from the ceiling.
Remember when what's his name? Rocky passed out?
Yes.
Maybe we shouldn't do this.
You know what? That is a really good point. So we had the old Rocky on our show with Liv Moods, and he told the story about him passing out. And he basically said that he had a jacket on and he like unzipped his jacket a little bit and the top part of the zipper was sticking upwards. So as he was being
Lowered.
repelled, it like pulled his jacket up and his zipper into his neck, and that's what caused him, it like blocked his airway and caused him to pass out. So I think it's entirely possible for Gabe to I keep wanting to say repelled, to be lowered from the rafters, but we just have to make sure that he's not wearing a jacket.
Easy, solved.
Easy.
Don't worry,
Done.
we got you.
So that's what's happening.
All right, this one was a really popular one from Evangelist. Game 3 of the first round, Landeskog takes the ice for morning skate, but Coach Bednar won't confirm he's in. I haven't talked to the trainers yet, he says with a wry smile. That night, the Avs have 13 forwards warming up. One of them is Landeskog. At player introductions, Roach announces everyone but the starting left wing. Smoke billows from the tunnel, and you hear the booming voice that's synonymous with the biggest moments in sports say. And at left wing, number 92, Gabriel Landeskog. Ballerina goes nuts.
This one gave me chills.
I love this one. One, it feels pretty realistic.
Very realistic. That's what I liked about that too.
Especially down to, I haven't talked to the trainers yet.
And that's so something Jared Bednar would say.
Word for word, line by line is something.
And he
Jared
has
Bednar
like
would say,
his
bar
little
by
like
bar.
goofy smile. Like he's trying not to smile, but you can tell like something's up. I like this one. I think this is the most realistic one for sure. Okay.
Get ready. Buckle up.
This next one
is a roller coaster.
I feel like this one's got to be the winner, right?
Oh my God. Yes.
So in depth.
Yes.
Every part of it.
We have a rider.
Yes. This is right. This is from Charlotte. This is a long one. So we'll go through this, okay? Last episode of the doc, Landy meets with his doctor and is told he's cleared to play. Doc ends with C-Mac and Sakic's celebrity appearance, taking Landy off LTIR and sending him to the Eagles for a conditioning stint, and therefore circumventing the last 3 days of cap. Love this. Already very realistic. Documentary crew continues for a Simone Biles-style Part 2. Landy joins the Avs for the first home game after the Eagles season ends. Landy plays on the Colton Coyle line and gets a tip-in off a Colton shot. Most legendary Colton Selly ensues and guarantees an Avalanche win. Love that. This is in parentheses. Avs win after a Colton point last season was bananas. His Sellys basically mean a win is inevitable. Completely agree with that.
No, this is such a good pulse for the team. Colton's celebrations and embrace of his teammates is huge.
Yes. The Avs playoff mantra becomes do it for Landy. Bettman decides, wow, this is the storyline of a season. Tells the refs to favor the Avs, basically ensuring a trip to the final. Landy switches with Kivy in and out of the lineup and plays enough to get his name on the cup. Love that. So we're going through this at a fast pace, but this is important here. EJ scores the game-winning goal in the finals. Everyone said he was brought back to be the vibes guy. He says, hell no. I was destined to bring the cup back to the one place I love. Landy passes the cup to EJ all over again. Absolutely love that. 2 weeks later, after the parade is done, Landy announces the playoff run caused more damage to his knee, and he announces retirement along with EJ, who has decided he just wants to be a professional nanny to Landy's kids so they can grow old together. You know, I hope that this isn't the case, but I see it.
I love that the character development of EJ being vibes guy. That's reductive.
Exactly.
I am so much more than a vibes guy, and I am a great Manny. And I just love the dimension that we've given EJ in this story.
I love it. Okay, so here's the last part of it. Bednar announces this season was too much shit to handle and he's retiring. Landy is announced as the next head coach. This all unfolds in part 2 of the docuseries, of course.
This is where I started to have such conflicting feelings because I love Jared Bednar. And I'm dying over, I'm tired of this shit, Grandpa.
Tired of this, Grandpa. Yep.
And Bednar just quitting. Sorry for cursing, everybody.
I don't know. I don't think it's realistic that he would quit, but Landy would be a great coach.
He would be a great coach.
Yeah.
Jared Bednar has described him as an extension of the coaching staff. He is such a good feel for players and their trajectories, and has even just had good insight into young players and who's going to stick, who has what it takes to make it in this league. And so I think there are so many aspects of Landeskog as a player that would translate to a coach right now. I think that's easily in his future. I just hope it's a distant future.
I know, me too. But I do love that.
All right. That one's pretty funny. I can't even. All right. Brian, Ivory Coast 99. In the first period, first game of the playoffs, it will look like a grisly-looking janitor has wandered onto the ice. When the refs ski over to escort him off, the janitor rips off his jumpsuit, revealing Gabe Landeskog underneath. He then joins the bench and plays.
This would come from a true marketing genius like Gabe Landeskog.
I remember the story of Peter Forsberg dressing up in costume and playing in a men's league and pretending to be bad and then just suddenly being really good.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's a Swedish thing, you know? They like a little hijinks. They like a little costume in disguise. And I think that's the strongest theory of them all because of that alone.
I agree. And if this theory came from somebody who watches The Office, I don't know if you watch The Office, but I absolutely love that show. There is an episode when somebody comes back as a janitor and pretends to be like a drunk janitor to then reveal that they're actually the manager of the company. And it is so funny. And if Landeskog did that, I feel like that would be a full circle moment for me, for sure.
I think so too. I was trying to find one of the ABBA ones because I think there was one that was pretty simple and sweet, but it really hit on a little bit of everything. Let's see.
I have a one other that I just wanted to call out for this statement at the beginning. Somebody said, "Does a skater have to partake in skate around to be rostered for the game?" This was what I wondered also. Do they have to, like, will he have to skate? I'm assuming he'll skate, morning skate, but does he have to skate before the game?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because the opposite is true. Like, I'm remembering something with Jack Johnson, and I feel like he didn't take warm-ups and then was ruled out, but would have been able to play even if he didn't take warm-ups kind of thing, and it was a game time decision. So I'm not certain, but I think you don't have to take warm-ups.
Right. I don't think you do too, because especially if it's a game time decision, I remember a few times that this happened to the Avs where they had players that didn't participate in the pregame and then were on the bench after. So I think that would be a part of my story.
Sneaking him in under the radar when nobody's expecting it. I really like that concept.
I love that too. I think that if I were to give my theory on it, that would be a big part of it, that he wouldn't be there for them to just skate around, and then he would have his whole come out scene. There would be so much lightning, so much fire,
so much lightning,
so many lights flashing, so many songs playing.
Who do you think would enjoy watching it the most? Like, just who do you think would enjoy a magic show the most? I think
Jesse
Johnson.
Jesse loves lights and music, and we should put a bunch of little kids on the ice.
Music. Okay, he had tweeted out there about the hockey song. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Hello out there, we're on the air.
Yes,
it's hockey night tonight. I don't have strong feelings about it, but he just came out of left field on the Gorilla Sports off ice account. Like, do you hate this song?
Yeah, I hope people know that was Jesse live tweeting and not you. Because
I think they knew.
We're such bold feelings.
No one else is so loud about things they hate other than Jesse.
That's so true. And speaking of Jesse, we have a super chat from Vaguely. How's Jesse's Mucinex bender in Montreal going? You know, I haven't heard from him, so I hope his bender is okay.
I hope it's okay. Woo! We got a super chat.
Thanks, John.
And he definitely got 100 viewers, so I didn't see a cartwheel, but we are keeping tabs.
I didn't see a cartwheel either. I'm really hoping he didn't do it. Did you watch the whole post game? I didn't watch the whole thing.
I didn't, so I guess can chat weigh in if any of you watched Jesse's post game last night. Did he do a cartwheel?
If you saw Jesse do a cartwheel, please let us know right now.
And don't lie.
Yeah.
Because we'll hold him accountable.
We will. Did you find an ABBA one?
Okay, it was Descends from the Rafters while ABBA's Gimme 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 A Man After Midnight plays.
Wow.
I just love that song. I think that's why I gravitated to this one from Casey. But another one where he's descending from the rafters, getting a little bit nervous about suspending Gabriel Landeskog in these scenarios. But we talked about it. Just don't have him wear a sweater, was it?
Yes. And another big one was assuming that we play Dallas, that there would be a lot of fights with Jamie Benn. And then like maybe he would come out onto the ice and start fighting Jamie Benn, or there would be like multiple fights. Out. Yeah. Like that would be his comeback story. Another big part of his return, if he does return, something I'm going to do for Gorilla, I'm going to spoil it, but I have to do a video of him with the song, like it's called Daddy's Home, I think, in the background by Usher.
Usher, I know what you're talking about.
That, I mean, maybe that's just a given. That will be his comeback song.
Papa.
Yes.
I just feel weird about Daddy, so I think Papa really softens everything.
It does, but for a comeback story like this, gotta go
respect
with
it. No, I respect it. You've got a job to do, and you're gonna execute.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's really hard to transition from descending from the rafters and lightning bolts striking ballerina, but we have a really cool feature from another event that has happened at Ballerina, going back to girls hockey night.
Mm-hmm.
The trade deadline, like when Brock Nelson was brought to the Avs, they hosted the Denver Women's Hockey League on the ice after the game to take part in some scrimmages. And we had the opportunity to talk to Natalie Stone, the director of their novice leagues. And she shared a little bit more information about this league. It's an adult women's recreational league to provide an environment where women can play hockey free from any forms of harassment or discrimination, and it encourages all women to feel safe to play, and it's super accessible then for women in Denver to come and try hockey at all levels. It's a competitive atmosphere too. There's tiers, so no matter your level of hockey, there's a place for you to give it a try through the Denver Women's Hockey League. And this was just a really cool opportunity to connect with even more of our wonderful hockey community here in Colorado.
They're such wonderful women, and it looked like so much fun because you can tell they were out there just trying to have fun. It wasn't they were serious about playing because they were at Ballerina, but you could tell that the purpose of it was so that they could find this community. And that was a big part of what Natalie talked about too.
Yes. Do you have the video queued up?
I do have the video.
Okay, amazing. Chloe made her first feature video from this event. So we're so excited to show it to you guys this afternoon.
All right.
Prepared for the community part of it. My role is our director of our novice leagues, which I'm really proud of because I get to help all of our new skaters, and being someone who is very, very recently also a new skater, I make sure that we have coaches, I help draft all of the teams, I field any feedback, just make sure that everybody feels supported and safe and welcome. And that's really the mission of our league, is to provide a safe, competitive, social atmosphere for people to learn and grow in the sport. I think we've probably grown by at least 50, 60 members in the last year, to the point that we're like running out of gear and having to apply for more grants and get more funding. It's hugely grown. And I think women's hockey in Colorado is, I started a year ago, I moved here 5 years ago. Prior to that, it was already a big deal, but I think in the last 2 years, it's obviously gotten a lot bigger. The fact that the Avs do this and that they promote women's hockey, but also just hockey in the community, and like having a space for our members to get the chance, it's incredible. And I think it obviously helps our league, and it, certainly makes people even more proud to be an Avs fan. So dwhl.org is our website. If you have questions, you can email us. I believe it's info@dwhl.org. Reach out any which way, and we will help you out and find you and welcome you into our community.
was Natalie Stone,
Mm-hmm.
and she reached out to us leading up to the event. So we are so grateful that she even thought of us to cover this event.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to do a little bit more with that league in the future. Yeah. And to any women who are listening, if you've wanted to try hockey, perfect place to start.
It's great. One of the things that Natalie did tell us was that she had never skated before joining, and she kind of had questions of, how do I like jump over? What am I
like? How do you know
of?
when to?
How do
change?
you know when to change lines? She was asking everybody, and everybody else was like, I don't know. It's my first time playing too, so it just sounds super, super fun. And I sent her that video, and she reached back out to us, and we're gonna see if we can try to do something a little bit more with them. Maybe catch up with, some people that play in their intermediate and advanced leagues. She did send me their schedule. They have a lot of games coming up, including a sort of playoffs too. So if anybody is interested in going to that games or kind of just checking out, what they do there, how they play, then feel free to reach out to us and we can send you that schedule.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am excited to do more with them. Their trophy that they award at the end of the year is named after a woman that I believe I did my first interview with when I was in journalism school. And it was an interesting story. So her name was Hillary McNeish,
Mm-hmm.
and she was at an Avs practice, and the NHL had just launched a version of their game where they include fan interaction. Like, you can see the crowd reacting to the game in game. Mm-hmm. And so they showed like super fan men with their faces half painted with colors, and they showed women in the stands taking selfies. And I thought that landed a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to talk to another woman who clearly loves hockey about how she felt about that representation. And that was sort of the basis of what I talked to her about. And so I think it is really cool that she has a prominent place in the women's hockey community, because I remember her sharing that with me back in the day. Anyways, let's do our burn book. I was born in 2000.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this burn book entry. People have been clamoring for this guy.
We've
to
talked
get in
about
here.
this. This is something, it never goes away. It's always kind of right there in the back of your mind, this little incident. So let's go ahead.
I present to you Jordan Bennington. You're going in the burn book.
Water bottle boy.
I don't
Whiny
think I've done
tantrum
that.
baby.
I don't think I've done that for any of the others where I've given them like a secondary nickname.
I love it.
Is it Jordan Bennington or is that just water bottle boy?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that he threw such a public tantrum, loudly, proudly, throwing water bottles around. And it's bigger than that. As we know, that incident stoked hatred that led to disgusting displays of racism targeted at Nazem Kadri and his family. That's obviously really gross. Like, that isn't directly Jordan Bennington doing that to Nazem Kadri, but it incited something very ugly in an ugly part of the fan base, because I also recognize that didn't represent the Blues fan base at large, but it just brought out the ugliest of people. So I feel like you have to look inward when your actions have that kind of effect that rally and galvanize the world's worst humans. You just maybe need to do some inner reflection. And also, Jordan Bennington did try to fight Logan O'Connor one time, and that was when Alexander Georgiev stood 10 toes tall, and he stood on business like, I will fight you, Jordan Bennington. And I want to give Georgiev some props for that.
And then he ran away like a little
whiny tantrum baby.
So I think it was the most recent time that we played St. Louis. I'm not sure when the last time was. I just put up a post on our socials bringing this moment back. And so it was the interview of, Kadri falling into him and then also, or being pushed into him. I don't know. And then it was
Kelly Rosen, right?
Yeah.
Your own teammate.
Yeah. And then it was both of their interviews. So it was the interview with him throwing the water bottle at Kadri, and then Bennington's interview when he was saying that he came around the corner and he was being all sad boy because he was injured. And then he saw that Kadri was smiling, so he decided to throw a water bottle at him. And I think as he said it, he was thinking, wow, like, that's kind of embarrassing to admit that I did that because it's such babyish behavior. But I will tell you, all of the comments on that, people will not forget about this. People were, it felt like they were just as mad at him as they were back in 2022. They were going crazy in the comments. So I think this is a great entry.
I almost regret not making him one of the first entries because when you hear Burn Book and your hockey crowd in Colorado, that's one of the first names people will bring up just because of his antics, honestly. Because, he's swinging his stick at Kadri in the playoff series too, and just like not the first player he's even swung a stick at. So just not my kind of goaltender.
Yeah, and I think this was somebody that I wanted to put in first, but it felt too easy,
It did. I wanted to try and think outside the box, but you know
it's
what?
Like, let's start with something that's a little more fun, because this is an obvious one. Of course this was going to happen at some point. We did talk about the idea of maybe putting Mikko in the Burn Book for a slight amount of time, just because he's playing with Dallas now. So maybe we pretend that we slit his face in there and we'll bring it out at the start of playoffs and something.
Pondered if Landy should be in the Burn Book for his prank on the media, toying with his return.
How dare he? That joke went too far with the fans.
Yeah,
that went too far, but it was too real. When I heard Jesse said it, I was like, I was on the edge of my seat, and then he said it was a joke. I was like, this isn't funny. You don't kid with people about that kind of stuff. And Landy, you will go in the Burn Book if you toy with your fans like that. If you don't come back in the playoffs, you're going in the Burn Book.
That's a promise. I'm just kidding. It did get blown out of proportion though. So you're right to be like, ooh, that was toying with people, because Ryan Bolding must have written about it or tweeted about it, and Bolding knew it was a joke fully, but other people did not know that, and so people took Bolding's quote and were circulating it on hockey Twitter and Avs Facebook groups, crazy, and without context that it was a joke. And so poor Bolding's getting looped into the mix too, as like the person quoting
Let's put him in the Burn Book.
He's the source. He's the one quoting it. It's like, you leave him out of this. He didn't do this. The context was missing.
Exactly.
And that's what happens with the internet. You kind of run wild with things. I mean, look at what we just did with Jordan Bennington. You
know what? Yeah, you're right. This is a good comment. He can't play with our emotions like that. Exactly. This is it's been such an emotional 3 years. And now we're talking about the idea of you coming back. You can't play with us like that.
I know. That's why I think he does have awareness of what he's doing and wouldn't be doing all this if it's just the end. Like, we'll see you guys when I see ya.
Yep.
Still unknown. So we'll see. That's all I have for today. Do you have any final thoughts?
That's all I have.
You guys should go check the Twitter thread under the Landeskog return theories, because there's so many gems that we didn't even get to read today.
It's a good read. I mean, I wish we could have read all of them, because I would have sat here for an hour and scrolled through every single one of them. But we're just trying to pick, the ones that stood out to us, the ones that a lot of other people liked. But there's so many Easter eggs in there. And it's April.
And it's April. I'm actually surprised we didn't lean into maybe a seasonal thing with.
It's not April.
Series. It's so gotta be April when Landeskog returns. It's going to be after April 13th. Yes. So
Easter eggs, April. That's another hint. Is he dropping another hint with that?
Is he dropping another hint?
Interesting.
He shows up on the ice dressed as the Easter Bunny. Beautiful. Okay, you guys, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching another episode of Pucks and Prosecco Investigates. We'll catch you guys next week for another episode.
Bye.
Bye.